Let me ask you something. If your life depended on leveling up your mindset today, what would you do differently? Because there's a level of thinking most people never reach, not because they're not capable, but because they never decide to break out of the crowd. That level is the 1% mindset. And the moment you tap into it, everything in your life starts to shift. Ladies and gentlemen, listen closely. Most people move through life on autopilot. They repeat the same habits, the same fears, the same excuses, and then wonder why nothing changes. But a small group steps forward with a different spirit. They think with clarity, they act with intention. They choose growth even when it's uncomfortable. Today, I'm talking to the part of you that's been waiting for more, the part that knows you're built for something higher. The 1% mindset isn't about being better than others. It's about being better than your former self. It's about commitment, consistency, and the courage to keep walking when most people stop. If you're ready to think differently, if you're ready to rise, then stay with me. Self-awareness is the moment you stop pretending everything is fine and start looking at your life with honest eyes. It is not about judging yourself. It is about understanding the patterns you keep repeating. When you step into this kind of truth, you stop blaming your circumstances and start recognizing how your thoughts, reactions, and choices shape your direction every day. Most people avoid this because it feels uncomfortable. It is easier to distract yourself than to sit quietly and face the parts of your life that need attention. But the 1% thinkers know that nothing changes until you confront what is real. You begin by noticing the small things, how you talk to yourself when you fail, how quickly you give up when something becomes hard, how often you hide your potential because you are afraid to stand out. These little habits form the foundation of your results. When you become aware of them, you interrupt the cycle that keeps you stuck. You learn to pause instead of reacting. You learn to respond instead of repeating the same emotional patterns. That pause is where growth starts. Self-awareness also helps you understand your motivations. You begin to see when you are acting out of fear and when you are acting out of purpose. You see the difference between what you truly want and what others expect from you. This level of honesty frees you. You stop living for approval and start living with intention. You stop chasing things that drain you and start choosing things that build you. Another part of self-awareness is recognizing your strengths. Many people downplay their abilities because they are uncomfortable accepting their own potential. But the 1% mindset means acknowledging what you are good at and allowing your strengths to guide your path. When you understand your natural gifts, you stop wasting energy trying to fit where you do not belong. Self-awareness also exposes your excuses. You start hearing the stories you tell yourself about why you cannot change. You hear the fear behind the delay. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The moment you call out your excuses, they lose their power. You step into responsibility. You start making choices that move you forward instead of keeping you in the same place. This kind of awareness does not make life easier. It makes you stronger. It gives you clarity. It gives you direction. It gives you the power to shift your mindset from surviving to growing. That is the beginning of the 1% mindset. Your daily habits are the quiet architects of your future. They work behind the scenes, shaping your identity long before the results show. Most people wait for motivation, but the 1% mindset understands that motivation fades. What remains are the small actions you repeat every day. These actions form your character. They decide what you move toward and what you drift away from. Every choice you make becomes a vote for the person you are becoming. When you look at your life closely, you notice that the biggest changes always begin with the smallest steps. Waking up a bit earlier to prepare your mind. Spending a few minutes learning something new. Choosing discipline over distraction. These habits do not feel dramatic in the moment, but they create momentum. They change the direction of your life one decision at a time. The 1% mindset is built on this understanding. You do not rise because of a single breakthrough. You rise because you keep showing up. Habits also anchor your mind during difficult seasons. When stress hits, when progress slows, when doubt rises, habits remain steady. They keep you grounded. You rely on them the way a ship relies on its anchor. Even when storms come, your habits hold you in place so you do not drift back into old patterns. This is why people who grow consistently are not relying on emotion. They rely on structure. They rely on commitment. They rely on the routines they built long before the challenges arrived. Your habits also reflect your priorities. If you spend most of your time reacting, it means you have not set clear direction. But when you take control of your routines, you take control of your life. You begin to place your energy into things that matter. You focus on growth instead of distraction. You choose progress instead of comfort. Over time, your habits reshape the way you think. They create discipline where there was. They create confidence where there was hesitation. They create resilience where there was uncertainty. Another important part of daily habits is consistency. Anyone can do the right thing once. It is the repetition that turns it into identity. When you keep it something long enough, it becomes part of you. You no longer struggle to start. You simply live it. This is where real transformation happens. You do not have to force yourself anymore. The behavior becomes natural. It becomes who you are. Your daily habits are not just tasks. They are messages to yourself. They tell you what you value. They tell you what you believe you are capable of. When your habits align with the future you want, your life moves in that direction with quiet but powerful force. That is the essence of the 1% mindset. Discomfort is the space where most people stop, but it is also the place where every meaningful breakthrough begins. When you step into something unfamiliar, your mind pushes back. It tries to convince you that staying where you are is safer. It points to the challenges, the uncertainty, and the fear of failing. But the 1% mindset understands that discomfort is not a warning sign. It is an invitation. It is the signal that you are stretching beyond the limits you have lived with for too long. Growth never feels comfortable in the moment. It demands emotional effort. It asks you to let go of habits that have kept you stable, even if they have also kept you stuck. Every time you choose discomfort, you are telling yourself that your future matters more than your temporary ease. You are training your mind to push past hesitation. You are teaching your spirit to handle more than you once believed you could. This is how resilience is built, not in silence, not in comfort, but in the tension between where you are and where you want to be. Discomfort also reveals who you are becoming. When you face something challenging and continue anyway, you uncover strength you did not realize you had. You realize that discipline is something you can grow, not something you either have or lack. You get comfortable being a beginner again, and that humility opens doors. It allows you to learn faster. It allows you to adapt. It allows you to break away from the patterns that once boxed you in. The more you stretch, the more you expand the boundaries of what feels possible. Another powerful part of discomfort is the clarity it brings. When you feel pressure, you start to notice what truly matters to you. You become more aware of your priorities. You become aware of your excuses. You see the difference between what you want and what you are willing to work for. Challenges force you to make decisions. They push you to evaluate your direction. They reveal whether you are committed or just interested. This honesty is uncomfortable, but it is necessary if you want to grow into the person you envision. Discomfort also teaches you patience. Progress rarely comes quickly. The road is uneven and slow at times, but every step through discomfort strengthens your foundation. You learn to trust the process even when the results are not immediate. You learn to stay present instead of rushing. You learn to appreciate how far you have already come. And slowly, without realizing it, discomfort becomes familiar. It becomes a sign of growth instead of fear. The 1% mindset is not built in moments of comfort. It is shaped in the moments when you choose to move forward despite the tension. Every time you step outside your familiar space, you stretch your potential a little further. That stretch is where your strength grows. That stretch is where your mindset hardens. That stretch is where your future begins. Focus is one of the greatest advantages you can develop because most people live in constant distraction. Their attention is scattered across noise, opinions, notifications, and uncertainty. They start many things but finish very few. They chase every opportunity but commit to none. When your mind is divided, your progress becomes slow and unfocused. But when you learn to direct your attention toward what matters, everything begins to align. You think clearer. You move with purpose. You stop wasting energy on things that do not move your life forward. Focus is not just about ignoring distractions. It is about choosing your direction with intention. It is about knowing what truly matters to you so you can give it your full effort. When you gain clarity on your priorities, you stop chasing everything that looks appealing in the moment. You stop letting the world pull you into urgency that does not belong to you. You begin to protect your time. You begin to protect your energy. You begin to protect your peace. This shift alone separates the average mindset from the 1% mindset. When you commit to focus, you create momentum. Your actions start lining up with your goals. You no longer work in scattered bursts. You build steady progress. You notice that fewer tasks done with full attention produce better results than dozens done halfway. This consistency strengthens your confidence because you see what you are capable of when your mind is not fighting for space. Focus also sharpens your decision-making. When you know where you are going, you know what deserves your yes and what requires your no. You stop doubting yourself. You stop second-guessing every step. You move with a quiet certainty that comes from clarity. This kind of thinking saves you time, and even more important, it saves you from emotional exhaustion. You free yourself from the endless cycle of overthinking because your direction is clear. Another part of focus is learning to stay present. The mind often wants to jump ahead, worry about the future, or replay the past. Focus brings you back to the moment in front of you. It allows you to give your best to what you are doing right now. When you stay present, your work becomes more intentional. Your conversations become deeper. Your progress becomes faster because your mind is not scattered across places you cannot control. Focus is a discipline. It grows when you practice it. And as it grows, you begin to notice something powerful. You feel more grounded. You feel more in control of your path. You feel more aligned with the person you want to become. The world may still be noisy, but your mind becomes steady. That steadiness is where the 1% mindset thrives. That is where real transformation begins. Your circle shapes more of your life than you often realize. The people you spend the most time with influence your mindset, your standards, and the limits you place on yourself. You absorb their energy, their habits, and their expectations. If you surround yourself with people who settle, you slowly begin to settle too. If you stay around people who avoid growth, you start treating growth like a burden instead of a privilege. But when your circle is built with people who think forward, who challenge themselves, and who push for better, you naturally rise with them. Your environment feeds your mindset. When the people around you complain more than they create, you begin to echo their frustration. When they fear change, you start holding back even when you feel capable. But when you share space with individuals who value progress, your perspective shifts. You start believing more is possible. You start taking steps you used to hesitate on. Their discipline inspires your own. Their consistency encourages yours. Their belief strengthens your confidence. A supportive and growth-centered circle becomes fuel, not friction. Being around the right people also teaches you accountability. You begin to notice how they hold themselves to a higher standard, and it pushes you to do the same. They do not allow excuses to take the wheel. They do not let comfort dictate their direction. They show you what it looks like to stay committed even when the path gets heavy. Watching them grow makes you check your own patterns. It encourages you to raise the bar you once thought was enough. The presence of strong minds sharpens your own. A powerful circle also provides honest feedback, not the kind that discourages you, but the kind that helps you see blind spots you have ignored. They tell you when you're drifting away from your goals. They remind you of your potential when doubt tries to cloud your vision. They correct you with care, not pride. Their honesty comes from a place of wanting to see you rise, not stay comfortable. This kind of support is rare, but when you have it, it changes the trajectory of your growth. Your circle also influences your courage. When you are surrounded by people who think boldly, you start taking bolder steps. Their courage becomes contagious. Their ambition becomes a reminder that you can stretch further. Their persistence becomes a quiet challenge to stop holding back. When everyone around you is moving forward, staying stuck no longer feels normal. You start expecting more from yourself, not out of pressure, but out of possibility. Choosing the right circle is not about judging others. It is about protecting the environment that shapes your future. When you place yourself among people who rise, you rise with them. When you walk with people who are committed to growth, your own commitment deepens. Your circle becomes a reflection of the life you are building. And that is the foundation of a true 1% mindset. Consistency is the quiet force that builds real strength. It is not dramatic, and it rarely gets attention, but it is the reason people grow when others stay stuck. Anyone can try hard for a day. Anyone can feel inspired for a moment. What separates the 1% mindset is the ability to keep going long after the excitement fades. Consistency is about showing up on ordinary days, not just motivated ones. It is about honoring your goals even when the path feels slow, repetitive, or unclear. When you stay consistent, your effort begins to compound. You may not see progress at first, and that is where most people give up. They want instant results. They want fast change. But the truth is that meaningful growth happens in layers. Every repeated action strengthens your foundation. Every small step builds a little more confidence. Every day of discipline adds weight to your identity. Over time, these quiet efforts turn into something powerful. They create momentum that becomes hard to stop. Consistency also strengthens your mindset. Each time you follow through on a commitment, you send a message to yourself that you are someone who can be trusted. You prove to your own mind that you are capable of following through. This builds internal respect, which is one of the strongest forms of confidence. You stop doubting whether you can change because your actions show that change is already happening. You stop relying on emotion to move forward because discipline takes over. Another important part of consistency is stability. Life will always have distractions, challenges, and unexpected turns. When you have consistent habits, they act as anchors. They keep you grounded when things get difficult. They prevent you from falling back into old patterns. Even if you get knocked off track, your routines help you return faster. This stability protects your progress and prevents your goals from slipping through the cracks. Consistency also changes the way you see challenges. Instead of viewing obstacles as a sign to stop, you see them as part of the process. You understand that setbacks do not erase the work you have done. You learn to adjust instead of quit. You learn to pause instead of abandon. You learn to continue even when you do not have all the answers. This mindset is what turns effort into endurance. There is also a calm confidence that comes from being consistent. You do not need to rush. You do not need to compare yourself to others. You understand that steady progress creates results that last. You trust your pace because you trust your commitment. This quiet confidence becomes a strength that people notice. Even if they cannot explain it, they see someone who is grounded, disciplined, and aligned with their purpose. Consistency is not about perfection. It is about persistence. It is about choosing growth over comfort again and again. When you live with this kind of commitment, you begin to think and act like the 1%. Your habits become stronger. Your mindset becomes sharper. Your direction becomes clearer. And piece by piece, you rise into the person you were meant to be.